Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of the Vilic Law UQFC preview show. It's not really a preview show. With the rain causing disruption to this weekend's fixtures, I thought, let's get a few presidents in and let's have a chat about how things are going this year. We've had COVID, we've had floods. I'm sure there's going to be some droughts coming up or some supernatural events that are going to cause more fixture carnage. And who has to deal with all this? Normally it's the presidents that are copying the messages from up above, the messages from their members, the players. They've got to sort everything out, keep everyone happy. So I thought I'd just have a chat with them on this weekend off and see how they're getting on and see if they've got any stories to share. So I'll introduce who we've got with us. We've got from Mitchelton, Gary Green. G'day, Gary.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. From West Wanderers, which is a club in Toowoomba, we've got Troy Delaforce. G'day, Troy.
Hello, Darren.
Great to have you with us. From UQFC, we've got Andrew Bird. G'day, Andrew.
Darren, how you going?
Good, good. From Ripley Valley, we've got David Willow. G'day, David.
G'day, Daz. Thanks for having us, mate.
No problem at all. And from Ridge Hills, we've got Jason Hale. G'day, Jason.
You going, Darren?
All right. Now, first question I'm going to throw out there, guys. I'm sure when you're at high school and everyone asks what you wanted to be when you grow up, I'm sure none of you said, I want to be the president of a football club. So if any of you've got some interesting stories as to how it came about, please, the floor is yours.
Definitely wasn't on my top agenda, Darren. But,
so how did it happen?
I got an email one Friday afternoon and I answered it. Rule one, never answer Friday afternoon emails.
What was the email?
Here's a list of people at the club that think you should be president.
Oh, really? So they were that desperate.
Well, it was a combination. Because we've got a junior and senior area, and because they were quite separate, I'd been able to have a foot in both camps over the years. So they felt that I could do something. So anyway, that was the theory. We'll see what happened.
Right, and you've stuck with it for 5 years.
Yeah. Nothing better to do on a Friday night.
All weekend.
All weekend, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, guys, yeah, with this weekend,
Yeah. You've stalled, Darren.
off. I mean, what does this weekend mean to you to have it off?
Means we get a chance to actually spend some quality time with our families.
Yeah.
Easy as that, mate. Yep. Like we've only got a small committee of 4. It's myself and the vice president that do most of the work down at the club. We can spend up to 8 hours down on a Friday night, go home, back up again on a Saturday morning, finish 12 o'clock, go back down again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for the 13-18s game. Then the seniors are playing home, and then it's a long 2 days for our club because this year with FQ I've decided to have no Sunday games all year, being a small committee. So we've got Friday and Saturdays only. We have Sundays off, and it's worked wonders when you only got a small committee. And it's really stressful, really hard, especially this is my 3rd year as president, and my first year was just, yeah, wow. I wasn't too sure was the club going to survive when COVID hit. I basically told all of FB back then that, if there's no football in 2 weeks, we'll probably have to put boards on the windows and shut up because we only had 75 members. And you can't run with 75 members. And then a remarkable turnaround. A week later, we had a football season. That's probably saved the club. And we've gone from 75 members to 300 in almost 3 years. So it's been a big turnaround, but we've had some real tough times. COVID, the 2 floods, people just don't want to help out and volunteer. So there's a lot of work on myself and my vice president, my treasurer, and the canteen convener, and a few other people that decided to help. But apart from that, the same 4 as last year, just do it all over again. You know, we work 40 hours a week in 2 days down the club. I can probably spend 24 hours, 25 hours in 2 days down the club. Simple. Very stressful. But if we didn't like it, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Is that story ringing true with everyone else?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we're in a lucky position because we've, in this way, because we've got a really good committee. We've got a committee of, what is it this year? 9 people, I think it is. 9, 11. Yeah, we went to 11. But we've got a committee where everybody has a job and everybody does their job. I've got a guy on the committee who looks after our FQPL and NPL junior teams. I've got a guy on the committee who looks after the under 6s up to under 12s. Under 11s actually. And then I've got another guy who looks from 12s to the under 18s. Another guy who looks after the seniors. And then we've got our treasurer, secretary and all that. So we've got a really good, strong committee. Getting volunteers outside of that's probably a bit more difficult, but you know, we've got a lot of people who help around the club as well in different areas. And I think that's, I feel sorry for somebody who's only got a 4-man committee, even with 300 members. We've got 1,100 and something, right? But you need people around, you need people to do the jobs, and that's what it's all about, is working out how you achieve that over a period of time. Because it's extremely important that you're not relying on one person to do all of these jobs, because all you're going to do at the end of the day is wear them out. And when you wear them out, they don't come back at all. You need guys when they finish doing what they're doing now, they move on and they still support the club in some way or another. And I think that's critical. How you do it, that's a bit more difficult. Right? I mean, it is, because getting volunteers to do anything this days and age is a bit more difficult than it used to be.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that shortly. David, you're in a situation where you helped form the club. So everything that you've got is what you've created. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right, Daz. You know, most will know, we're in our 4th year now as a club. The way we started was a couple of mates. So I actually built my first house in an estate out here at Ripley, and I ended up being neighbours with Nick Patterson and Brodie Kenyon, who are both, you know, pretty fair history in Ipswich football, and you know, we all had a bit of football in our blood, and there was sorry, mate, dog's going off. We had some new fields being built, and they were asking for some EOIs for some local sporting clubs to use these fields, and you know, we were literally having some beers in the driveway at the time, and you know, imagine having your own club. And we put an EOI in, and a couple of other community members who we didn't know at the time came together, and we had an accountant, we had a project manager, and a couple of others that turned up to our AGM. We had Paddy Boyle and Kim Wickstein from Western Pride come along to our first sort of meeting to sort of give us the runaround on how a club works, and one thing led to another, mate, and here we are 4 years deep. So you're right, yeah. It's a bit of a unique situation in that we formed the club ourselves, and we're trying to grow it from the ground up, and all the challenges that comes with that. So yeah, it's been a ride, mate, for sure. So yeah, it's been a ride. If you had asked me 4 years ago, you know, do you think you'd be president of a football club with a few hundred people in it, and you know, win a grand final here and there and whatnot, you know, designing logos on serviettes at the pub, I wouldn't have believed it, but here we are. So it's been good, mate.
Just on that, how much advice did you get from other clubs about the do's and the do nots?
Yeah, look, mate, a fair bit. You know, myself, Brodie, Pato, we've got a fair few connections from having a lifetime of football. You know, so each of us, you know, speak to other footballers and other club people on regular basis and players, and I think that's always been a key part of, you know, what's gotten us to where we are is, I guess, you know, speaking to others in the community. And people that have been involved for a long time, and obviously us ourselves as players. And I guess from that point, you sort of know what works at clubs and what doesn't work. So it sort of gives you a good basis to go and execute what you think, you know, works well and how things should work. And hopefully try and avoid some of those mistakes that have proven costly to other clubs. So I think, I think that collaboration has been really important. Like I said, we had a really good relationship with Pride early doors. So a couple of guys up there were really helpful, and we got those guys down. They lent us some gear and a barbecue and a blow-up field for our very first presentation day. So all those things, they're very small in, as individual, I guess, tokens. But when you put it all together as a bit of a club story, it all sort of helped form where we are now, mate.
Troy, how long have you been president at West Wanderers?
This is my first year.
Your first year?
Yep.
When you signed up for it, was there any handover? Was there any advice that you got? Were you just sort of, have you been thrown into it, or did you have a good idea as to what you were in for?
Had a good idea. Been with the club for 14 years now. So since, from my son starting at under sixes through to now playing men's. And as sort of he got a little bit older and I got a little bit older, I sort of wanted a bit more for the club and take a bit of a back seat then to being the parent and being the coaching and getting more involved with the club itself. I'm very, very lucky that our club secretary has been with the club for about 15 years now, maybe more. If there's anything to know about football in Toowoomba, he knows it. So he's a great help to me. And sort of, listening to what Jason was saying, we are the same. We have a very small group of core committee who do the bulk of everything, but they're very loyal and give a lot.
Yeah. All right, it's time now to talk about volunteers. I know that there are some clubs that have they seem to just have an absolute army, and then there's some clubs where, Acacia Ridge were a club, they were well and truly a one-man committee. He would do absolutely everything. He has sadly passed away and his name escapes me, and I do apologise. We can thank the wine for that. So how do you get your volunteers in? What's the secret? I'll start with you, Gary. You seem to have a few at Mitchie.
Well, I think the way you get volunteers in, it's difficult, and it's not a simple, this is the way you do it process, I don't think. But the one thing you've got to do is talk to people and listen to people. And when somebody volunteers to do something small, take them up on it, right? And I'd be honest, we're not as good as we should be at that, right? But if you find somebody who wants to do something small and you help them do it, and you bring them in some way into the club, and they're doing some volunteer work there, that's the way you get people in to do more and more and more. We're of a size now where we have, employed people. We employ a lady to run our canteen. We employ a technical director who's more or less full-time. We employ 3 other technical directors who look after different areas of the younger part of our club and the junior part of our club. So we've actually got part-time people where we pay them to do a lot of that stuff, right? But having said that, you need the volunteers to work around them. You need managers for every team. You need, volunteer coaches at junior level. You need volunteers to come down and get out and put out the corner flags and all that sort of stuff, right? And I think from my point of view, the best way to achieve that is to actually keep your ears wide open. And, if somebody volunteers to do something, take them up on it, because little things grow into big things. So that's the best I can say about it.
Yeah.
A similar philosophy, Darren. I think, volunteers are the heartbeat of all sporting clubs. And it's everything starts down at those managers and coaches down in mini roos and stuff like that, where as most parents, I think from the sound of Troy's story, it's pretty similar to mine, where you start off as the kids coach and move on from there. So coaches and managers, you can't survive without a parent stepping in and supporting and doing their stuff. UQ's got a similar structure to like Mitchelton, except we're bigger. So we've got those paid administrators, but you still rely on volunteers to do the odd jobs and to do the admin work, or some of the admin work. And I agree with Gary there. It's like I don't get around our junior side, our junior area as much, but definitely in the seniors, it's a case of talking to people and meeting people, and if they're drunk and suggest they're prepared to help, I'll hold them to that and follow them up in a couple of days afterwards.
All right, what happens when you get someone who's fresh, who volunteers to do something, and you can see that they're doing it totally the wrong way? This is going to cause more issues. What do you do?
A small word here and there, or a large stick.
Just give them some good advice.
Yeah. And Jason, how hard is it to delegate tasks, mate? When there are, certain, I know it's at my club, there's, the president there works so hard.
Mark Macklin.
Works desperately hard, and they have their way of doing things. And for someone else to do it might just upset the apple cart, that sort of thing. So how do you go with your delegations?
Well, that's the problem, to try and find someone that wants to do things. It's not easy. The last 2 years it's been real tough with COVID, and a lot of parents are finding it difficult with loss of jobs and this and that. So it all takes an effect on the club. And like on a Friday night, I could be down there from 5 o'clock to 12 o'clock with the juniors playing the main field and the 3 over 35 teams up in the top field. Now it's just myself and Trent and the canteen lady, and we try to get people to come down and help, but they've got other lives outside of football that they need to do first before they can come down to the club. And you got to take all that into consideration. Like being a small club, it's very hard because we're all voluntary. We don't have any paid roles at our club except the canteen lady. That's it. That's all we have. So, it's very difficult to run a small club. It's not easy. There's a lot of stress that comes with it. And I think David will agree with me. Because when David first started at Ripley, he asked me for some advice on the small side, and I gave it to him. And it's real difficult. It's not easy running a small club as what people think it is. There's a lot of responsibilities come with it, and a lot of actions come with it, and it's very time consuming.
That's my next question. Tell me a story about a situation where a certain job that you've had to do has come up, and you're thinking, there's no way I signed up for this.
Well, when I first became president, straight away.
I think that's across the board, isn't it, for everyone?
Yeah.
Well, there's that, but after 2 years of COVID, and then the flood came through our place like you couldn't believe. I didn't sign up for that, but
No.
I think, out of that, we had a number of people down there. A couple of people stepped up and started working with the insurance company, the rebuild and all that sort of thing, right? And we just, as a committee, we just said, right, you two guys, you've stuck your hand up, go and do it. And they've done a great job. And I think the other thing that probably is out of that, the flood situation more than anything else, we got flooded one day and we went down the next day and said, well, where do we start? And then we put the word out. I was amazed by how many people turned up, club members and community members from around their area, and people that we'd never ever heard of before turned up with bobcats and all sorts of things to help us clean up. I think, I don't know whether it'll last, but out of the flood situation, it's really been devastating for us and has been extremely stressful on a number of people. That situation brought our club closer together in lots of ways. I'm not suggesting that everybody wants a flood, honestly, it's a terrible thing. But it's amazing the things that can bring your club together and can help you get people working, right? I certainly didn't sign up for that sort of thing, but because of the way the people in our club have responded, it's probably been one of the really satisfying things in my time at the club, and I've been there a long time, where you see the number of that actually got down, brought their shovels down, their brooms down and everything else, and started to help to clean up. So
There's always this argument about volunteers where if things are going so well, people will stand back and say, "Oh, no one needs me." And it's only when something goes wrong, or if they're unhappy with something, that it stirs up and they put the cranky hat on and they'll step up and say, "Well, I've got to do something about it." So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Gary, before we press on, you've got to tell the story about the container in the creek.
Well, I didn't think a creek could pick up a container and wash it miles down the creek, but it did. I mean, we put the container in a while ago, and we'd moved it, and we were storing footballs and all of our equipment for our NPL teams and our FQPL teams in that container. So when the flood came along, it just picked up the container and it floated down the creek and stopped at the first bridge, and then it got round the first bridge and finished up way down the creek.
Was that the one at the end of your field one there? Or was it was at the end?
It was, but we moved it from there over to the other side, which was unfortunate, because if it had been at the end of field one, it probably would have still been there. But we moved it over to the other side and it floated off way down the creek. And a few of our members kept going down there to see how the creek was going when it was going down. And when it got down enough, they actually got into the creek and went out and rescued what they could out of there. But there was a lot of stuff going on. One funny story that out of that, when they were down there collecting the balls, this lady walked up to them with two balls in their hands and handed one of them to him and said, "I think this is yours," and started to walk off with the other one. And they said, "Well, hang on, isn't that one ours too?" "Oh, yeah, probably," and threw it back to them. So, but we probably, out of that, we probably got maybe 50% of the stuff back. The rest of it finished up out in Mourne Bay or somewhere, and some of the stuff we got back was just destroyed. But that's how it finished up in the creek and where it finished up. And how a creek picked up a container like that and floated all the way down there, I mean, it just shows you how strong that water was. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
David, you got any stories to tell there, mate?
Not really, mate. One thing that comes to mind when you spoke about volunteers and what you sign up for is, you can be down at the field in the smaller clubs and committees that Jay probably spoke about. It's pretty standard. You can be down in the fields on like you said, in your 9th or 10th hour, and you can have if it doesn't rain, it pours, right? All of a sudden you can have toilet paper. You've got someone with a broken arm that's out in the field playing. You've got the referee asking for a ground official, and you've got a police incident outside on the street or something as well. It's you can be just running around like a headless chook sometimes, just trying to keep the peace and trying to do 6 or 7 different things at once. So that's what comes to mind, I guess, when you ask about what you didn't sign up for. Was I'd much rather stand back and either have a beer and watch the game, or just be sitting on the coach on the bench, assistant coaching as I've been doing for the last few years. But it just doesn't seem to work like that way.
All right.
It's all fun, mate. It's all part of the game. It's good.
All right, it's time to talk about parents. The parents that think that their kid is going to be the next Socceroo or Matilda.
Aren't they all going to play for the EPL? They're all that good.
Someone's going to tell me a story there.
How long you got?
What percentage of parents do you think have that notion that their kid's going to make it to the top?
Surely we all do at some stage, until proven otherwise.
Yeah. Troy, do you ever have that issue?
We do. I'll probably say it's not that often. Some of those parents will probably end up sort of going to the local Toowoomba Thunder, or who are probably a better tier side than our league. It happens, and we get some parents who are very, very, very supportive as well. But I guess once they're 13 and above, it's great to support that. It's probably more so when they're under 10s and they're really pushing to be more competitive. And it's, at that stage, it's just, hey, probably try and just enjoy it for what it is for now, because it won't, it doesn't always stay fun.
Yeah.
Once they start getting competitive, it's not as fun.
Do you have a standard put down for anyone that has those lofty ambitions for their children?
Me, no way. Very much like to keep the peace.
Yeah, you never put down a parent. I think that you got to just be realistic with everybody, and say, well, somebody in Queensland might make it to the top level, but there's however many thousands of kids playing football in Queensland. There's probably one there. So if you think your child's the one, well, that's fine. But while he's here, we'll encourage him to enjoy the game and try and make him better than what he is today, tomorrow, and not try and say to him, you're going to go and play for, over in the EPL, or you're going to play for Australia or anything like that. I mean, that's something that'll happen if you're good enough. That if you're not, just enjoy the game.
I always had another couple of conversations over the years with various people, and we're fortunate at UQ to have a number of divisions within most age groups, and you're able to say to some parents that, look, I understand that your child is the greatest ever, but maybe it's better that he or she gets more time playing in whatever div. It could be div 5 or div 6, to be able to show the coaches above how good they are, so that they know what they're missing, rather than perhaps going and sitting on the bench for div 1 and not being able to show their wares. That's kind of a standard trail you try and encourage and say, give them game time. Tell them, make the coaches disappointed that that kid's not playing for them. So next year they'll get called up.
What about when the kid doesn't show up to training on the week, is quite rightly put on the bench, and then the parents have a whinge that they're not playing?
Well, I guess in all of our levels, right, we try and make sure that all kids get a reasonable amount of time, but not in a game, right? I mean, we look at it from the point of view of you get a reasonable amount of time over a season, not in an individual game. So don't go to your coach or anybody and say, hey, today my kid only played 10 minutes and the other kid played 20 minutes, because it's not that. It's about how much time they get over a season. And I think that's what you got to... the kids have got to get game time. If they don't get game time, then they're not going to improve, because you can do all you like at training. We all know that. We've all been there, done that. You can do whatever you like at training, but until you get into a game situation, you don't learn the better bits of the game. So I think it's fair and reasonable that you, with the younger kids, or all the kids really up to under 18, that they get a reasonable go and a reasonable amount of game time. But you've got to look at it over the season and not what happened today at the game.
Sure.
It's a way that in a season there's a good coach will be able to manage their kids through, in that there's always, depending on where you sit, if you're a mid-table team, there's always teams that are weaker than you. So they're the games you identify to give your lesser players more game time, and so that in those tougher games you can give your better players more game time. So that's the kind of 50-50 I always kind of give to parents. So same thing with Gary. It's all about the season. The kid will get, if you want to have the stopwatch out to say, 5.4 minutes of game time today only. What's going on? Yeah, it's too hard.
David, do you feel any responsibility to produce a Socceroo or a Matilda?
No, I don't, mate, at all. It's not something that I think about, mate, to be honest. My position of the club and I guess me as a personality is just that, I just want kids on the field playing football. And I know that sounds cliche, but to be honest with you, mate, running a community club, that's how it is. I feel like that NPL Socceroo dream's been sold a bit to people by the way the game's marketed these days and the way that, I guess, certain clubs are going about their business. I feel like the club has gone that sort of elitist way, but I'm a bit old school, mate, in the way that I do business. I came up through Brisbane football in the 90s, with Pine Rivers back then. And, back then it wasn't all about money and it wasn't all about, 3 sessions a week and video analysis and that sort of stuff. I still believe that you can produce players without having a dietitian and 13-year-olds doing 3 nights a week in the video session and that sort of stuff. So love it or hate it, mate. I'm pretty old school in that regard, and I still believe that you just put good people in the right spots and, what will be, will be. So, like I said, we've got a couple of really good blokes running around coaching down at our club. So guys like Brody Kenyon, Adam O'Sullivan, decent players in their day back around Brisbane and Ipswich. And, the development that I've seen them put players through the under 9, 10 sort of Komodo level. And some of the teams that they've rolled, from clubs that are paying a lot more money for registration than we do. I still believe in putting the right people in the right spots. Is what produces good players, mate. For me, it's I don't focus on producing Socceroos or making producing elite NPL players. It's just putting kids in the park and giving them a good coach from a young age and get a ball at their feet, and what will be will be.
What about you, Gary? You're much higher up the pyramid. Do you feel any responsibility?
No, not at all. What our responsibility is produce players for the most senior team in our club, which happens to be QPL1 at this stage, and in the women's same thing, QPL1. So if we produce players that get to that level, then we've done our job as far as we're concerned, right? If we have a player there who we think can go to a higher level, then we'll certainly help him find that higher level, or her find that higher level, right? And we'll encourage them to do that. But as far as we're concerned, I mean, you look at NPL, FQPL1, and now FQPL2 probably. If you look at the bulk of those teams, there's not a hell of a lot of difference, right? So we're there to produce players eventually who finish up in our top team. And if one of them happens to be good enough to go further, then good luck to them, and then we'll encourage that. We're not there to produce Socceroos. I mean, that's a side effect. I mean, if we ever do, that's great, right? And we've had Socceroos play for the club, but it's not something that we set out to do. We set out to produce players for our senior men's and senior women's teams.
So with what you said before, have you ever had a player that you've gone, right, they're too good for this club, we need to push them as far up as they can go?
Yeah, in the past we have. Right now, I don't think there's much further. I mean, you can't, in the men's, the difference between the top level of QPL1 and, probably the bottom 2/3 of NPL is not all that great. They come down from NPL and they spend a lot of money to go back up. But that's fine. They've got the money, then spend it. But it's one of those things, and it's the same in the women's, right? I mean, if you're producing good players and we're playing at a good enough level, then they'll stay. If we're not, they'll move on, and that's fine. If they want to move on, we're not going to, make it difficult for them or anything like that if they believe they can get better somewhere else. A lot of them come back though. It's funny enough.
Troy, what's your Toowoomba experience, mate? Is having players that represent the Thunder, is that an ambition at all?
No, not at all. Actually, they like the Thunder play in the Brisbane comp, and they're very good. Our club is much more about community and just being involved. Probably, at the beginning of every season, we will lose one or two players who want to go and have that, I'll say, different experience. And sometimes it works for them, and sometimes, as Gary just said, they'll come back to us after one or two seasons, whether it's the travel or it's the cost. But we'll lose people to other clubs around town because they want to get more to game time or something like that, or they want to be in a better side. But very much for us, I don't think that our club feels any pressure, as long as we are having fun, and that's how we rate ourselves.
Okay.
Darren, it's a very topical question that you put out here, because our executive's about to go into a meeting on Monday night to partly discuss this about our philosophy on football. I'd like to say to Dave that if you follow that, what you've said there, Dave, I reckon Ripley Valley will be a huge club going forward, because I think it's a great philosophy to have.
Thanks, mate.
You don't need to chase that glory, and you just need to put good teams out. And similar to what Gary said, like I've kind of had this philosophy all my time at UQ, that we can be a good community club, but we can also play competitive football to the level that we can afford. So we're not chasing. No, we backed out of NPL. I think in my first year of the presidency, but I'm still keen for our club to play as high as we can, but within the boundaries of what our players can do. And we're not chasing. I've had coaches come to me before saying, mate, we want to do this, we want to do this. I want to play for players. And I said, well, what does the premiership pay me? What does it give the club? Tell me what income I'm going to get to cover the cost of these players. And there's no value in it. So it's really just egos that people are chasing. So if you can give your kids a safe place to play, an enjoyable place to play, and they can develop, and you can provide the services that they can develop and skills to improve themselves. And then the club can decide, if you've got good players, okay, let's go to a higher division, whether that's still in community or whether it's in the development or FQPL area. But I think the people chasing the elite stuff is all ego. So yeah, waste of time.
Jason, is Ridge Hills under any pressure to move up the pyramid?
We're a bit like David at Ripley. We're a community club. Our main focus is to get juniors into seniors and retain them, because without juniors got no seniors, seniors got no juniors. So both need to work together to form a good, stable club where players can go and play at the highest level, which at the moment is FQPL 6 for our club. So far, so good. We're doing very well, but it was also very hard to try and retain our under 11s this year. They've gone Komodos and they're doing very, very well. So first Komodos 10 clubs had, and we want to try and retain them. We have under 12 girls that are doing really well. We want to try and retain them. And we've only got a 13 Div 5s, a 14 2s, and a 16 Div 4s, and we've got a 18 MJL, which is a very tough league, that competition. But I'm a bit like David. I was brought up old school at Pine Rivers, where you were just taught the basics. And these days you got like play between the lines and all this mumbo jumbo, which I don't believe in. I'm being honest with you. I don't believe in it. Kids should play football to their ability. There's too much pressure on kids at the elite, and that's why these kids leave the elite to come back down to the junior clubs. And it's also money is a big factor as well at these big clubs, which I've never heard of fees to play football at FGFL and NPL club. I just don't believe that we should be paying to play football that we do at the elite level. I'm against it. I'm sorry, but people might on here think that I'm wrong, but I don't believe that we should pay anywhere what we do to play football here in Queensland. That's just my philosophy. Go back to the basics. We're already 10 years behind the rest of the world. Start from the grassroots and build up. Don't play between the lines. Let's just play football and be taught football how we were back when I was playing, which was simple. You know, like coaches like Alan Marley, and look at the players he's produced. Robbie Cruz, Omar Sirota, look what they've gone on. You know, and they come from Pine Rivers. They were taught the old way to play football to the best of your ability. And if you're good enough, you'll get selected, just like Robert Cruz. Good enough, he got selected. You know, Frank Farina didn't make the rep teams until he was, you know, well into his 18s. You know, there's no good example.
He was 16.
He's 16, sorry, yeah. But I just don't think we should pay money to play football here in Queensland. The money getting thrown around at senior level is for what? What do you win? $200,000 for winning premiership? No, it's
No,
not
you don't
worth
get that much. You don't get that much. You get nothing.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying it's not worth it, isn't it? But like we don't pay our players at Ridge Hills. They all pay Rego.
What about you, Gary? You're certainly at the different end of the spectrum there. You do have a budget for your players. So
We have a budget.
Are you under pressure to get in that NPL? I know that your head coach wants to get you there. I'm sure the players want to get you there. How important is it as a club that you're playing at the highest level?
If they didn't want to get us there, I'd be disappointed in them, right? But from the club's point of view, I mean, we want to be at the highest level we can be at. And the reason we want to be there is because that helps us when we're bringing kids through to retain them, right? And I mean, we have a player budget. We pay players, right? And both women's and men's. We pay coaches, but it's all done in a reasonable manner, in a manner that's we can afford, right? And we're very strict on keeping the club floating and alive, right? There have been times in the past where our clubs, like a lot of clubs, decided to go and chase a premiership, and we've overspent, right? And you know, the people that were there at the time that did it, I mean, they did it with all the best intentions in the world. So it's not a criticism of what happened. It's just the way things happen at clubs at times. But we now run a fairly tight budget, and we provide our senior coaches in both areas with a budget every year, and so that's what you've got to spend. Don't come back and tell us you want some more, because you're not going to get it. And it's up to them to work out how they do it, right? I mean, we're nowhere near the highest paying club in either of our competitions, I don't believe. But even with those senior teams, it's about getting players there who fit the culture of your club. So it doesn't matter whether you're paying players or not. You've got to have players there who fit the culture of your club, and you've got to do it so that it's within the means of your club, right? So you don't go and spend money to win a premiership. You go and spend money because that's how much money you can afford to spend to keep guys there and keep them happy. And a lot of the guys there, to be honest, I mean, they're university students, or they're you know, doing that sort of thing, right? And instead of going and working at McDonald's, they come down and play some football for us. And that's the way I look at it.
Nice. Now, on the money side of things, Andrew, what's the couple of expenses that a club has to absorb that people out there would go, no way?
At UQ?
Oh, I'm sure that your experience is the same at every club. So what are those things that you're forking out money for?
We pay an absolute shitload of rent to the university to play on their fields. Yeah. So no one realises that when they come over there. I think ground maintenance is a fair, if you want decent grounds, if mum and dad don't like seeing a dusty dust bowl or the players bitch and moan about a dust bowl of a ground, there's a lot of money that's got to be spent to keep it up to scratch, and then you've got to manage that over the year to keep rotation off to keep it getting to be a dust bowl. So it's quite easy to spend 20, 30, 40, $50,000 just in ground maintenance.
And what assistance do you get to cover those costs? Any?
From
Well, yeah, you tell me.
nil.
So you've just got to absorb that, through your fees and through your canteen and fundraising?
Yep. That's where mum and dad's payment to play the kids' football goes into giving them grass, giving them lights, giving them admin, paying registration fees to our football administrators above us.
Guys, is that ringing true for your club as well?
I think the maintenance is certainly one of the most expensive. We pay. We lease our fields from Brisbane City Council, but we have to do all the maintenance on our fields. So
you'd have a requirement under your lease by the council to spend X amount per year.
Well, if we have, it's not high enough because we spend a lot more than that. We've got. We're lucky in some ways that we've got the number of fields that we have. Even without the synthetic pitch, which is now folded up, we've got 4 full-size fields, plus a number of smaller fields around the place. And maintaining that amount of area is basically a full-time job, right? And keeping them in a condition that they're acceptable to play matches on, your lighting, your electricity costs, and all those sorts of things. That's the sort of things that chew up most of your money, and that's been the case for as long as I can remember. But it's an investment you've got to make. We're out on the border of other shires or other councils where clubs don't bear that cost, and that's just a fact of life. We don't complain about it. We, in some ways, I think we're in a better position because we get to manage our own fields. We make the decision on when we play and when we don't play, and we make the decision on whether the fields are closed because they're too wet, which, funnily enough, they are at the moment. But so it's not like if you go across into different places. The council comes in and says you can't play in your fields this week, or they come in and say we're doing maintenance this week, so you haven't got a field for 2 weeks and things like that. So there's swings and roundabouts with it, but certainly your maintenance cost is the highest ongoing cost you're going to have. And then with the floods, we've just spent, I think it's about $45,000 just getting the fields back to a condition where we can play on them. We've got to be very gentle with them this year because of what happened during the floods. And then we've put aside money for the end of the year to bring them up to a condition where we're happy with them for next year. So our maintenance costs this year are going to be probably double what they would have been. But that's just the way that it is. You can't do anything about it. You just got to make it work.
What's the situation?
Gary?
Yep.
Question, but stupid question. Line marking on a synthetic pitch, mate. How long do you get out of that? Have you got something you got to touch up during the year, or?
No, not at all. Line marking on a synthetic pitch. It's just a different coloured synthetic grass. Yeah. So it's there forever.
Yeah, right.
You don't touch it. Synthetic pitches are fantastic, mate. You've got maintenance on them. To be fair, right? When the thing was working properly, we had some guys who come out probably every 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month, depending on how much we were doing on it. And they basically go out and sweep it, right, and pick up and level it all out. But your line marking, you don't touch it. You don't have to water it. If it rains too much, the water runs off in the corner, and away it goes. So yeah, they're fabulous things.
When the only experience I've had with synthetic pitches, mate, is with the Australian Defence Force, and I was a goalkeeper in the Air Force and ADF team there for a few years, and we went down to Manly Premier League club in Manly, and they run on synthetic pitches down there, and Valentine precinct as well, where the Wanderers women train, great facilities. Now, all I remember is diving around on that thing as a goalkeeper, and it had little bits of rubber or something that would constantly come up and get in your eyes and down your socks and everything. Is that the case out of Mitchie? Is that the sort of field you got?
Yeah, there's a bit of rubber there. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best thing, and when we first put the pitch in, we did a fair bit of toing and froing with people about the quality of the pitch. And we went for the level at more or less at the top level. So it's FIFA accredited pitch it was at the time, right? So you can play international games on that pitch. That's the standard that it's at. And I guess the best thing you see, if you look at a hockey pitch, it's very flat or very short, right? And they water it all the time, and it's made to make the hockey ball go fast. Where the one that we had is designed more to act like a
You've got
grass
a longer
pitch.
grass, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a lot longer.
Yeah.
You've got sand, and then you've got that rubber that you were talking about on top of that.
Yeah.
And the best thing I can say is our over 35 and over 45 teams, when we were putting it in, we got a fair few people, fair few of them saying to us, we're not going to play on it, you know. Now, try and keep them off it when it's there. Try and keep them off it, because they'll tell you that they play on a normal pitch in Brisbane, so it's pretty hard, and it takes them till Wednesday to get over it, so they don't bother training. Where they play on the synthetic pitch, it takes them a day and they're fine, you know. So it's a lot better on the body in some ways, but you see people who slid along on it a bit too far, and you see the bit of a rash on there. It's got some downsides as well.
Oh,
Brisbane
yeah,
City
100%.
Council is encouraging clubs to, or is trying to encourage clubs to go synthetic.
What's the situation in Toowoomba, Troy?
It's a very mixed bag, to be honest. So just listening to sort of some of the comments then, pretty much all of the fields in our competition are all owned by council. Facilities are quite good, considering that we don't do our own maintenance, so the council will go and do that. However, the downside of that is you're sometimes at their beck and call of when they're going to be able to do it and the quality of them doing it. If we get too much rain up here and then they go out, there's just so many clippings laying there. But yeah, we don't have anywhere near the costs that the Brisbane clubs will have as far as that goes. But our fees, I was just having a look at Mitchelton's there. Our fees are sort of half for our kids to play, but we don't have anywhere near the costs. Facilities up here are okay. They're pretty much, like I said, they're all council owned, and the clubs do quite well to dress them up. However, we're limited by the amount of signage that we can have up. We'll get up there and put all our advertising, our sponsor advertising up on a Saturday morning, take it all back down on a Saturday afternoon, because we're not allowed to have it up permanently.
Oh, wow.
That brings up a great point. Sponsors, are they easy to come by these days or more difficult?
Most of our ones are all parents of the club, parents who have businesses, and it is quite good for us because they really want to get involved and do whatever they can for us. Probably having that expertise to run our websites well is one of the things that we really lack, and having a company that wants to do it without charging us a fortune.
What about with the other guys? How do you go with sponsors?
They're hard to come by, right? I mean, it's I think in this day and age, you get the parent sponsors or the parents who've got kids there and people who've been around a while. But if you try and get somebody to come in and sponsor your club who hasn't got that association. So you're looking at, an outside organisation. It's very difficult. I mean, I don't know why, but you got to be able to prove you're giving them value for money. I think we've got a few, right? And don't get me wrong. I mean, the ones that we've got are great. A lot of that sort of stuff. I mean, someone talked before about video analysis and they didn't like it. But we had somebody who sponsored us this year and has provided us with some equipment to do video analysis, which we're getting our head around at the moment. But the one thing that it does do is, you do it, and the players certainly that I've seen anyway, they get involved in the video analysis pretty much where we are, and they get given bits and pieces every week. Well, you made this mistake. Why did you make it? Or you did this well. And it's not a negative thing. It's more a positive thing about how do we improve at the higher level. And over time, we hope that we can feed that down through the club to help all the kids improve. But that's the sort of thing that you look to sponsors to do for you, rather than, going to them and saying we need X dollars to do something that's not tangible.
Hey Gary, it's Willow. It was me that made the video. I just want to feel like I want to rescue myself a bit here. When I made that comment about videos and dietitians and that, what I was, there's 100% a place for that. 100%. I don't deny that, and I encourage that. I guess what I was
don't back out now, Willow. You laid it down early, mate.
What I'm saying is that I don't necessarily think it's the only way to produce a player.
Yeah,
it's not.
That's all I'm saying. I still believe in the diamond in the rough. There's still a lot of people that are successful in sport and all walks of life that came from very, very humble beginnings. And I'm not going to be going and charging parents $3,000 a year to play football and provide all this stuff, because I don't think it's a requirement, but there's 100% a benefit from it as well. So let's get on with it.
Darren, when's the next game between Mitchelton and Ripley? Let's
Well, whenever you like.
Let's get it on the side.
In our club, we've got different levels, and we give people different things for the different levels, so we charge different amounts of money. And at the younger level, when kids are coming into the game, it's all about encouraging them. It's all about getting them out there and getting them running around. I mean, I've got a grandson who's 3-year-old who started this year, so he drags me down there. But it's just another reason to go to the club, I think. But there's a place for everything, and one of the difficulties in a club like ours is that you have got all those different levels, and you need to not treat the kids in the Division 3 team too much different to what you treat the kids in the FQPL team or NPL teams. So you've got to get a balance somehow, and that's a very, very difficult thing to do when you run a club the way we run it, where we've got all those different levels. We got it reasonably right now, I think, but we haven't got it perfect, that's for sure.
And Gary, that's an ongoing argument it'll come out from parents, it'll come out from administrators, it'll come out from executives that, who's being fair? Is it fair? But I think you do have to have tiers of, at this level, you're only paying this, so this is what you get. And if you want the highest level, how are you going to pay more? And if you pay more, you get more time on the park, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. Do I want to ask this question? Referees, have they? Do I want to ask you guys about referees? Have you had the same level of refereeing this year than you have in previous years?
Darren, I'll start. I'll give you a starting point. When I first used to go down to Kenmore to try and watch my kids play, I never got to watch my kids play because I used to have to run the line because there was no ARs. You'd have a centre ref, and UQFC has been fortunate over the years that we built up an in-house club referee system, so that our mums and dads don't have to run the line anymore, because we start off with our mini-roo refs. I think we've got 70 odd mini-roo refs, and they develop and they come through and they fill in for under 12s, and then they'll run the lines for the junior games. And I coach in the women's Metro 5. Where's Sass? Bring Sass on. We've got to talk about that game.
I keep trying.
Come on.
Yeah, sure. Okay. But our club referees provided 270 spots last year for all across the club. So at Metro 5, I generally always have 3 officials because club officials fill those. So I know that FQ want more. I know there's been comments from the presidents and from a lot of people about why are they charging, new referees fees? Why do you push things away? You've got to make it easy to get. We need referees to be there. Without the referees, you don't have a game. And so when clubs or teams only have 1 official or no officials, or someone's got to run a line or do something, it comes down to understanding. So it's my understanding is FQ want to run the whole show, and I don't think they can because referees don't want to go. I'm on the west side. I don't want to go to Rich Hills tonight. Sorry about that, Jason, but I don't want to go to Rich Hills and referee tonight because I'm not traveling 30, 40 Ks. And I don't think they get it. And they're trying too hard to cover all bases. So there's a solution for pods, I think, of referees where you can have a Redcliffe or a Gold Coast or a Toowoomba based on. But trying to take control of the whole system will fail.
Got enough referees on the range, Troy?
Good enough, just not enough. So when Andrew was talking about parents running the lines, unfortunately, a lot lately, we're just going out without linesmen because there's parents aren't even turning up to the game. Sort of sometimes, or they just will not put their hand up, and so you end up with the centre ref, and that's it.
Wow.
Not for the men, but for the younger competitors, definitely.
Yeah, right.
We've got a club referee system as well, and it works really well. I saw the stats that the Football Queensland put out the other day, and I've asked the question: is that where they had the percentages of centre referees and linesmen and that they put out there? And I asked the question, and this I think is the hardest thing for us. I asked the question: is that appointments or is that actually referees that turn up? And it's 2 totally different things, right? And if we get told on a Friday that the referees aren't turning up on Sunday, then we can manage to get club referees to fill in there, right? But if you get told an hour before the game that the referee and his linesmen aren't turning up, it's very difficult to get club referees to come in and do those games. And that's I think, they haven't got enough referees, and I understand that some referees don't want to travel as far as they're asking to travel and all that sort of stuff, right? But if we get reasonable notice as a club, then we can do something about it. If we don't get reasonable notice, then it's very difficult for us to do something about it to help the situation. We're not there to fight with the referees or with Football Queensland, but we've got to help the situation, and we can't help the situation if we don't know what's going on.
FQ want to take over our club referee system. There's no way we want them to do that because they're failing to fill. That's why we've got a club referee system, because they can't fill it from top down. So you've got to fill it from below. So for the Troy, Dave, if you haven't got them, if you've got a friendly referee in your area, get him on board or him or her on board and bring them over and train your kids as referees, because that's how Troy, that's the thing, mate. You get kids to referee. My young fella used to do it. He didn't work at Macca's. He could earn $150 a weekend doing refereeing. What better thing for a kid to be able to be involved with the sport they love and enjoy and get paid for it.
And stay out of Macca's.
Yeah.
100%. But I also think, I think club referees could probably be the way of the future, and push that up into the senior ranks as well. We're not getting enough referees, for senior games these days. The issue that I see is that if you've got club referees, how do you get a neutral if you're travelling to a senior game? Say in 5 years' time, Ripley FQPL is playing against Mitchie. Do we want a Mitchie club referee refereeing that game? So you've got to sort that out. But for me, the biggest thing with refereeing is, for some reason, we've got to try and close the gap, right? So you've got plenty of volunteer players and coaches. You talk about not wanting to go to Ridge Hills and travel that 30, 40 Ks. From Ripley, you're going to North Pine, you're going to Pine Hills, you're going to Caboolture. You're travelling more than that every couple of weeks. Coaches, players, volunteers, no one's getting paid a cent, but we can't get referees to do it for $130 a game. That's the bridge that we've got to, we all do it for the passion, for the love of the game. For me, that's the gap that you've got to shut, is why can't we get a referee to travel for $130 for a tenner in an FQPL game? Yet you can get 20 volunteers, coaches and players to go there for absolutely nothing. So for me, you close that gap and we go a long way to getting a bunch more referees to referee our games at the senior level at least.
Yep.
Jason, anything?
I just agree. There's a shortage of referees all around. It's kind of like you go to a football Premier League 6 game that we've had this year. We've had 2 referees. They've done back-to-back games. And I said, "Where's the third referee?" There's not enough.
Yeah.
It's really, as David said, we've got to close that gap and try and fix it. It's a mess. It really is. In small side football, you got teams travelling from Ridge Hills under 9s all the way to UQ. And I know Joe Gardner at your club, Andrew, was spoke to me about this by email, and it's not good enough. They're travelling more than what they play. Why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing it? It's just not. It's not right. Go back to the hubs that FB had. We used to travel 15, 20 minutes for a small-sided game. Now I've got under 6s going to Bribie Island, travelling more than what they play. I've got under 9s going to Toowoomba UQ more than what they play. It's something that we need to get right, and I don't think they've got it right. And we've got to get the referees right too, which isn't right.
You've got to make it reasonable for people to travel, especially with kids at that age. We're fortunate, I guess. We run the under 6s and under 7s. We work with Westside, and all of our games are either at home or at Westside, basically. And that works for the under 6s and under 7s. When they get to under 8s, they go back into the Football Queensland thing and go wherever they're told. But the parents of kids at that age don't want to travel too far. So we've got, the next suburb over, the club from there and us, we work together and make sure that, the thing works, and it seems to work really well and everybody's happy with it. So I think everybody needs to look at that sort of thing and work with clubs closer to them to get those young kids just involved and having fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought this chat would maybe go for half an hour. We've just clocked up about 80 minutes or so of chat. So it's probably time to stick a cork in it.
Hey, Darren, who needs Spencer?
Yeah, exactly. Now, my final question for you guys is, what's the payoff? What are the parts about being president of a club that make it all worthwhile?
Seeing the kids on the park happy and smiling, and the season presentation. That's a big plus to me. We make ours every year. Very good rides, fireworks from a local councillor who supplies them for us. To me, the kids on the park, the small-sided, the competitive, even up to the seniors, just playing football. And the end of the year, they celebrate it. It's what we're for, aren't we? It's what we're here for. If we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't do the job.
Totally agree. It's being able to. I often say that I'll go and stand on a Saturday morning up on the hill at Cobbler Creek, and I look down on the happy smiling faces and
Yep.
all the hard work of the committees that we've got, it goes into just making those happy smiley faces. And over on the senior side, it's just being able to kind of see the development of some great kids come through into their adult years and developing them into people as well as players. That's great.
Come on, Dave.
It's
Story
it's
about
such a
Winston staying at the bar till 2 a.m. with the over 35s.
I've given that up. I can't get up on Saturday morning to get down there in time if I play that all that way. But I mean, I think it's exactly what the other guy said. It's about going down. I go down there on Saturday morning, and you can't get a car park in the place on Saturday morning. It's ridiculous. But you know, we have our midget program, which is, you know, basically 4 and 5 year olds mostly. And then the under 6s and under 7s and all that sort of thing. And there's just hundreds of kids everywhere smiling and laughing and carrying on and having a great time. And that's what it's all about. And then watching those kids develop. I mean, they're all not going to be stars. We talked about before, they're all not going to be stars. But if they're still enjoying the game, they get to 18, whether they're playing for us or whether they're playing for someone else, it doesn't matter. If they're still enjoying it, then we've done our job. That's what it's all about.
I think for me, you know, there's a very, very broad range, and I think we're lucky as presidents to get to see, you know, most aspects of the club as more than just your age group or your team, or, you know. But for me, it's everything that goes from such a small thing, from an under 6 or under 7 first-time player who might be, you know, they might struggle a bit socially to interact, and it's their first team sport, and their parents are nervous, and they come and chat to you at the start of the season about how their kid's not very good at socialising, and then by the end of the year, they're high-fiving and running around with their teammates. It's just, you know, they're one big team, and then, you know, on the other end of the scale, I'm a bloody competitor. I'm a footballer, and I coach senior men, and to win a grand final, you know, to be cracking the champagne and tipping beer over people's heads, and just that exhilaration of winning a bloody grand final, you know. And it's everything in between those two aspects for me is, you know, and anyone that's got football in their blood, I think, you know, will agree with that. So it's, as a president, you're pretty lucky you get to see the whole deal. And for me, it's not something you can summarise in a single sentence. No way.
Troy, you get the last word on this.
I'll be a little bit corny, mate, and I'm going to say that, like, for me, I think as president, just being able to have that little bit of input that you might not have had, and probably my biggest joy this year as my first year is seeing those kids where it's their first year, and when they come up to the clubhouse and they get their jersey for the first time and they get their socks on, and, you know, and they're there, you know, an hour before the game, they're just so excited. You know, all the way through to watching the men play, and, you know, seeing the young guys make that transition from 16, 17 to men, and being well out of their depths, and but still having fun. That's what I like.
Good stuff. All right, guys, what a fantastic chat. If you're still watching out there, thank you so much for sticking with us. I hope you got something out of that. I certainly have. I've you know, demolished a bottle of wine, listened to some great people talking about their clubs. This is the stuff that I love. I hope you do too. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to my club presidents. Absolutely great insight there. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you on our page. I don't know. Too much to drink now. So,
Thanks.
You
Thanks,
say
guys.
goodbye.
See you later.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Darren. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.